the rapid changes that are occurring in the world. The world is rapidly changing and has been for some time. Just like the steam engine launched the Industrial Revolution and a century of tumultuous change, and electricity changed things dramatically in the latter half of the 19th and early parts of the 20th century, the internet has launched the technological revolution. We are living through that period of massive change everywhere, in media, communications, transportation, how we learn and work and live. The world is not going back to the old way that it was. And America needs to adapt so our workers, families, and businesses can compete and prosper in the 21st century. There are so many different changes. Let me just point out one that our society has basically neglected, and that is about child care. When I was a kid in the late 50s and early 60s, the typical American family had two spouses, only one of whom worked. I'd get home from school every day, and there would be my mom, for me, my brother and sister, with milk and cookies. Made sure we drank our milk. She didn't care if we ate our cookies. And she asked us, did you have homework? We went out to play, but she was keeping an eye on us. Play in the street was one of the places I learned the most, just playing stickball and other stuff in the streets of Brooklyn. But in any case, that's not true anymore. The typical American family is not the way it used to be. The vast majority are either single-parent families or two-parent families where both work. And that means that child care is much more needed to maximize both the happiness and productivity of our society in the 21st century. Parents sweat over child care. They need to go to work, but who's going to watch the kids? Can they afford child care? Is it good enough for the children, of course, who they love, who are our children are our most precious possession? And if we don't dramatically change child care, we're going to fall far behind. Far behind. I read somewhere that of the 37 OECD nations, we are 36th in child care, only Turkey is lower. In general, these things should not be partisan issues. Infrastructure and jobs, putting our economy on firm ground, should be the work of both Democrats and Republicans. Another change, obviously, is climate. In the 50s and 60s, we didn't even imagine a world with climate change. In the last 20 years, it's become apparent that we better do something about it, or we could have worse times than this COVID year every year, 10 or 15 years from now. The dramatic changes that would discombobulate our society and risk our health and our economy, just as COVID did, will happen if we don't do anything. So fighting climate change and making sure America leads the world in emerging industries that deal with climate should be the work of both Democrats and Republicans. This Congress has proven that we can legislate in a bipartisan way. Just most recently on the anti-Asian hate crimes bill and a bipartisan water infrastructure bill. I believe we'll continue that trend by taking up and passing a bipartisan competition bill this work period. So as we head to the White House today, I hope our other leaders are thinking about how we can come together to solve our nation's problems in a bold and lasting way. 100% of Democrats' focus, and I think I can speak for Speaker Pelosi as well as myself and President Biden, is on delivering help to the American people. Now, speaking of bipartisan legislation, today the Commerce Committee will begin marking up the Endless Frontier Act, one of the most significant investments in American innovation in generations. The bill will be at the core of comprehensive legislation to address American competitiveness and security in the 21st century. Once again, for the information of the Senate, it is my intention for the Senate to consider and finish competitive legislation before the end of the month. There have been productive bipartisan talks over the last week to improve the Endless Frontier Act. This is an issue I've worked on with my friend, the Republican senator from Indiana, for the past few years. He's been of great help, a great partner. I appreciate his work. And, of course, Senator Cantwell, our chairman of the Commerce Committee, and Senator Wicker, our ranking member, have come together And everyone had a give bit here and there and everywhere. But I think we have a strong bill that should get strong bipartisan support. And the simple truth is very simple. The Endless Frontier Act is legislation our country desperately needs. For decades, after the Second World War, our country led the world in science and technology, from healthcare to computers, from telecommunications to manufacturing to defense. Our workforce brought these innovations to the global economy, and it produced more than half a century of prosperity. People in the last half of the last 50 years, from 1950 to 2000, thought the future was going to be better even than the present. And it created the usual American optimism. But things have changed. And one of the things that's changed is years of federal investment in sciences. And they have exposed long-term weak spots, serious weak spots, in our economic competitiveness. This could hurt us dramatically in the next 50 years. The longer we put off investing in sciences, the likelier it is that other countries, like China, but others too, will overtake America as the global leader in innovation. And that will have profound consequences for our economy, our national security, even the future of human liberty. And it will have a lot to do with whether Americans believe that the future economically will be better for them than the present, which is part of the American hallmark and trademark, our sunny optimism, which we must restore. There's been a sourness in the land lately. It is our mission to restore it. So, to take the initiative back, the Endless Frontier Act provides $100 billion for basics research through the National Science Foundation, focusing on the critical technologies of tomorrow, where we have to stay the leader. AI, advanced manufacturing, renewable energy, quantum computing, cybersecurity, 5G, so much more. Battery storage. This bill will nurture tech labs, tech hubs across the country in places where they are not now. We have to spread the wealth. The clock is ticking on the need to make these critical investments. The Chinese Communist Party has gone to extraordinary lengths to steal a generation of American intellectual property and cheat their way to innovating and economic growth. We definitely do not, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, do not want a future where the Chinese Communist Party dictates the global order and how the world uses 5G, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. That's why the Endless Frontier Act is resoundingly bipartisan. We already have 6 co-sponsors from each side, 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans, because these issues affect the future of our entire country. I greatly look forward to the good work that Chair Cantwell and the Commerce Committee will do to advance the bill this week. Final topic. I'm not in the habit of commenting on the House Republican minority, but today they have reached a new and very dangerous low point. Earlier this morning, the House GOP ousted Liz Cheney from the party's leadership. Her crime? Telling the truth. Telling the truth that Joe Biden is the legitimate president of the United States, and Donald Trump is lying when he says the election is stolen. Congresswoman Cheney spoke truth to power, and for that, she's been fired. Make no mistake, the Congresswoman and I disagree on so many policy issues. But we both agree that truth matters. And she, like so many characters in history, I'm just thinking now of Sir Thomas More, had the courage to tell the truth and paid a big price for it. So this is sad, a very dark moment for the Republican Party. Republicans are seeking to perpetuate and act upon the big lie that the election was stolen, simply to placate the most dishonest president in American history. This president lies at will. He doesn't care of the consequences for the future of our grand, great, and wonderful democracy. He only cares about himself and feeding his ego, and truth has nothing to do with that. It matters what happened, matters a great deal, and what the president is trying to do hurts our country dramatically. The former president's lies right now are poisoning our democracy. eroding our faith in government, and exciting a plague, often nasty, sometimes racist, of voter suppression laws. I had thought that January 6th revealed the devastating consequences of the big lie. I thought that the invasion of our capital by an armed mob, a mob that sought to delay the peaceful transfer of power, a mob that I was within 15, 20 feet of at one moment, would demonstrate to all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, both ends of the Capitol, the awful price of Donald Trump's lies. But after a brief and all too short period of introspection, it appears that the big lie is no longer on the retreat among Republicans, but instead is spreading like a cancer. Far be it from me to tell House Republicans who should lead them, but it's truly a dangerous, dangerous sign of our times that the price of admission in today's Republican Party is silence in the face of provable lies. I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the